Be real, be yourself, and never let anyone tell you what you should do and who you should be. But whatever you are, whoever you are, own it. And don't apologize. Be authentic.
I just love that intro. I don't know why. It annoys people, but I love it.
Yes, well, that's probably why you like it.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
So I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Okay, I'm Larry Cohn.
You look like you're coming from the heavens right now.
Well, I'm coming from 10 floors above downtown St. Louis, overlooking Union Station.
Yes, but there's clouds in the background.
Yeah.
The angels are upon you.
There's a couple liquor bottles.
Little glow above the liquor bottles.
Right.
So either they're heavenly or you are.
No, that's great. Like you get to go to heaven and it's free cocktails.
So yes, it's like River City.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is let me just set this up and then I'll let you take over and kind of roll from that. But we get a lot of people that just ask us all the time, why do you do that? Or why do you do what you do? Or why do you keep doing that? And I've got this saying that I believe is true. And you and I have both had experience where we bet on people and it didn't work out. And just the conviction in your
yes
was legit. Right. So yet we continue to bet on people. And one of the things that I always say, and I believe this to be true, and I'm going to let you take it and just kind of share your thoughts, but there's more oftentimes than not, if you bet on people, it probably isn't going to work out because people have the best of intentions and whatever the case may be. But so here's what I believe. If 99 out of 100 times it doesn't work out, it's okay because that one makes the risk, makes everything worth it. That reward on that one makes it worthwhile. And do we come up with skinned knees and bleeding elbows and all those things? We do. But sometimes you just have the view from the heavens like the one behind you. And I don't know how else to describe it. That may seem overly dramatic, but it's what I believe, and it's how we've chosen to live our lives. Specifically, in the last 18 months since the pandemic started, we've been living kind of a different life. And that's what Unapologetically Us is about. So I want to get into it. Larry, I'll let you set up the rest of it.
So I think and I'm speaking for you, but I'm pretty sure that I'm comfortable in this. But one of the main reasons we do what we do in regards to the betting on people is because we've both been in situations where nobody wanted to bet on us. And I know, how that feels. And I know the struggles and the pain and all that stuff that goes with it as you do. So I think that's the inspiration that takes us to why we continue to bet on people.
Yeah, I think too, it's let me just let some people off the hook, right? In fact, before we go into that, what you're saying about my happiness?
Yeah, my happiness is up to me. Everybody else is off the hook.
Yeah. So look, if it doesn't work out, that's on us. We made that choice. And here's another off the hook that I want to give. There have been many times people didn't believe in what I was trying to do. And at the time, in hindsight, they were right. You have done that sometimes, right? And sometimes those people that don't believe in you, it's not that they don't believe in you. It's that they're trying to protect you.
Yes.
And they're oftentimes carefully disguised as your spouse, significant other, loved ones, parents, friends, family. And it's not that they don't think you're worth it and don't see the value in you. They just are trying to protect you from a hardship or a heartache, so to speak.
Yep. Exactly.
So yeah, I think that was well stated. And I want to go into some of the risks that we've taken. And to me, they're not really risks. And I think to you, they're not really risks. Can we just start with some of the extreme adventures? And this isn't in the notes. I just thought about it, but we went down to
just the number of times we traveled during the height of the pandemic. I mean, people said to us, that's crazy. Like, what a risk. And
you have friends yelling at you and defriending.
Yes. And clearly, most people weren't traveling because the airports and hotels were empty at that time, but we didn't see it as a risk. Actually, we saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and it was. Flights were cheap, hotels were cheap.
Mhm.
I mean, it was great, and we saw some amazing things. But moreover, we met some really amazing people. You know, I think we have lifelong connections out of Mexico.
Yes, for
The
sure.
people that we met there, the places that we've seen.
Mhm.
My 10-year-old now says, "When are we gonna go back home to Puerto Vallarta?"
Oh, he says no, to go back home to Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
He does say Mexico.
He does.
But you know, it's taking those risks. They weren't really risks for me. I don't think they were risks for you. And we saw some cool things, and we did it at a time where other people weren't there. It wasn't crowded. We swam in the open water with sharks.
Right.
That some people would say that's risky. In
Yes.
fact, you did at the
I
time.
did. Yeah.
So now I find out you can actually swim with great white sharks with or without a cage with the right tour guide. Just in between, like Los Angeles and Hawaii, there's a place where they can take you. And so South Africa,
Mhm.
I think it would be just great. But and that one, I'll concede. That one's a risk.
Yes.
But sometimes the reward, the adrenaline, is worthwhile. But those are fun things. I want to talk a little bit about how things seem to come full circle. And if you're not ready for that, we can save that for the end. But things always seem to come full circle. And I'll just throw some of the failures at you that we took risks and they didn't work out. And most of these are my risks, and then Larry has his own set. But we tried to put together a coaching program with qualified coaches. We tried to make a co-working place stay open at a time when social distancing was required and it was really not possible to stay open. We traveled the country looking at business investments, and we partnered with really hundreds of different people in small little ventures that they were working on here in the St. Louis market when we were really focused in St. Louis. And almost all of those didn't work out.
Right.
But things tend to have a life cycle that come back around. Jim Rohn, one of my favorite people to listen to, his voice is just great, and he makes me think, and I find myself quoting him all the time. But he said he was brought in by the people at Chevron years ago to talk to them about what to expect in the next 10 years. And his comment was, you know, gentlemen, I do have the insight on that, and I believe that the next 10 years are going to be about like the last 10 years. And he said, after spring comes summer, after summer comes fall, after fall comes winter, and I promise that isn't going to change. Expansion is followed by contraction, or recession is followed by expansion. And these are just the cycles of things. But along the journey with this, the little deposits that we've made of people and skill sets. And it seems like now, and I hope we can unveil this soon, but it seems like all of those risks that didn't work out are about to come back around and work out. And I always believed they would, but Larry, I want you to talk about that because you have a lifetime of these. And this is the first business one that I've experienced that's to this magnitude.
Yeah. So, I mean, there, a couple of ways of looking at it. One could say that these things didn't work out or that they're failures, but I prefer to say that instead of saying they're failures or they didn't work out, that, you're taking score too soon. So it's just that it's not working out now, but you don't know what will come of it. And I have dozens of examples, but I'll just share a couple of examples with you, one personal and one business. I was smoking crack. That's a huge risk for your health, legal wise, everything. Not a good thing to do, smoke crack. Everybody told me it was a horrible thing to do. I recognized it was a horrible thing to do, but I hung on to the belief that something good was going to come out of it, that I didn't want to take score too soon. And what came out of it was my children. I had met kids in the neighborhood where I would go buy the drugs, and eventually those kids inspired me to get sober, and I ended up going back to my drug dealer and ended up taking custody of her kids. She signed them over to me, and I haven't smoked crack since, and the kids are good, and we have just an incredible relationship, the whole family. And it came about in the most awful way by addiction and in the neighborhoods, but I didn't take score too soon. I didn't say it was a failure. I just said it's just not working out now. And then the other example, and I could go on for hours, but the other example I'll share is with NextCore, a co-working space. That didn't work out. There was a lot of money lost, and we had to shut it down. A lot of people said, that's too bad, that's a failure. And, you know, I said, maybe, but maybe we're taking score too soon. We, instead of just vacating the space, we donated, you know, several thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to a nonprofit who put a school in there for youth and for young people. And one of the things they do is STEAM education and coding. And it turns out that, like, you know, a year and a half later, we have been presented with an opportunity to bring a prominent European company that does coding for kids to the United States. And like, wow, what a break. We actually, you know someone who does coding, and there's a place we can take it to. So now that's in the process of becoming a really good thing.
Yeah, and they found us through the Partners Program. We put the Partners Program out there, and they said, you know, we're not looking for partners, but we saw what you're doing, and it was really an interesting thing. As you were talking, Larry, I thought about this. And they said it didn't work out, but my question is, for whom, right? For whom did it not work out?
Right.
It didn't work out for the NextCore building, but all the work worked out for someone. There's a reason why people make tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars when the stock market crashes. And there's a reason why people make tens or hundreds of millions when the stock market explodes and blows up. It's because they're prepared for what's coming, and it's really all in your perspective.
It is.
So that was a good example. There's a couple other things, and we were specifically talking just now about the Whitfield Foundation, a phenomenal organization. Marlon's a great guy. He was actually featured as a change maker by us. And let me just give you a little bit of the history of that. So let's go back to March of 2020. And in March of 2020, NextCore is drowning. You know, we had our revenue like reduced by virtually down from 100% to 2%. And the next month it went down to 0%. So we were losing money like crazy. And we came up with an idea. Actually, one of our members said, hey, we need to do something. We started brainstorming, we figured it out, and we came up with an event called Streamathon. And Streamathon was a 32-hour telethon. It cost us thousands of dollars to put on in the midst of, remember, losing money. And we had hundreds of people, from entertainers to celebrities, big celebrities around the world, and local St. Louis celebrities on there. And we put on a 32-hour telethon. A lot of people volunteered their time to do it. We volunteered our time. We raised, you know, 6 figures in services and cash, and we gave it away to the small business community. And the hope was that we would be able to ride out the storm. We didn't. Before we knew we weren't going to ride out the storm, July comes, and we decided to put on the Small Business Independence Day celebration. And this was about raising awareness. And we put out this, I think it was 15 hours. I can't remember now. It all kind of bleeds together. But we put on a 15-hour event where we showcased all kinds of locally owned businesses and brought awareness to them. So the first goal was to raise money with Streamathon. The second goal was to raise awareness with the Small Business Independence Day celebration. And everybody told us we were crazy. At first, Larry, you even said we were crazy with the first part of it. And then you realized it was what it was. And it was a great service. And it ended up being our farewell song for NextCore in our physical location. A month and a half later, we closed down that building. Or about 2 months later, we closed down that building. And the Whitfield Foundation was brought in, and they took over the building. We helped negotiate that. We did that knowing we were going out, but we still negotiated that, helped them, funded them, did some, not completely, but we were a part of it. And then it came to the point where all those things came full circle. So Streamathon, the Small Business Independence Day, those two events and the platforms, we realized there were over 20 million exposures for the businesses that we featured,
Right.
whether that be through Google searches, reviews, things that we could specifically tie to those events. Over 20 million times those businesses were seen. We use that same platform to create the Changemakers program. And Changemakers was an event we put on to benefit Revitalize, which was the nonprofit we served. And everybody thought it was crazy that we put on the Changemakers events. We did it on a shoestring budget, and really, you know, we had other board members, but Larry, it was 99.9999999% you and me. Mm-hmm. And we put it on, and that has now led to all of these connections that are allowing it to come full circle. And it's funny because all the things we had dreamed about doing, all the notes, all the meetings, all the things like that we just shelved when it wasn't working, are now coming back around. And I find it like serendipitous, but I also find it really incredible because I don't think through all of it that either one of us ever lost belief that something good was going to come of it, even if it wasn't what we expected. Mm-hmm. So that's my full circle portion. I obviously could talk for hours on that, but you've had some things happen in your life that came full circle, like you talked about, broken cycles.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to share a story. It's going to take like 2 minutes, but I think it's a great story, and it relates to, this topic is taking risks, but there is no thing in and of itself that's a risk. It's the way you perceive a risk or the way you relate to the risk that either makes it a risk or doesn't make it a risk. And so the story I want to share is about a rancher in a foreign country, and he raises horses for a living, and he has all these horses. And one day a big storm came and it tore down the stable and the ranch, and all his horses escaped into the woods, and all the neighbors came over and they said, "Oh my gosh, that's so awful. You lost all your horses." And the rancher said, "Maybe." So the course of the next couple months, he's rebuilding the stable and he's rebuilding the farm. And like out of the woods comes this whole pack of all these horses, and he's able to get them into the stable. And the neighbors come over and they say, "Oh my gosh, you are so lucky. That's great that you have all these horses." And the rancher said, "Maybe." And his son is now training one of the horses, and he's breaking the horse in, and the horse crushes his leg against the side rail. And the neighbors come over and they said, "Oh my gosh, that's awful. What happened to your son? He's in a full body cast. It's really bad." And the rancher said, "Maybe." And then shortly thereafter, a couple of weeks thereafter, the Minister of Defense in that country declared war on another country, and all able-bodied young men had to go to war. And the neighbors came over and said, "Oh my gosh, you are so lucky. Your son is exempt from going to war." And the rancher said, "Maybe." So it gets back to what I said. You never know where you are at any point. And if you can you don't necessarily have to think positively if you can, but if you can just release the resistance of the negativity and stay somewhere in neutral. It's like your car. If you can't put the pedal to the metal and you can't get enough momentum to get the gas going in the right direction, that's okay. But just leave it in neutral, because when you're in neutral, you can just give it, a little push and you can go forward. So if there's anything going on in your life right now that people are saying is negative or that you think is negative, say what the neighbor said to the rancher, say maybe, and then, park yourself in neutral.
Yeah, that's a great, I love hearing that story. And there's a million examples like that we can share, and things that you don't realize are creating lessons and imprinting on you at the time. They sometimes come back and reveal themselves later.
Absolutely.
So we said at the beginning of this why we do it and why you should too. So I just want to share why I do it. Then Larry, I'll ask your thoughts on why you do it. But why do we keep going? I talked about the 1%, the 1 out of 100 makes everything worth it. But also those 99, you don't really know what the result is, because like Larry said, most people take score way too soon. So we didn't know that what we were putting on that cost us thousands and made us nothing was going to lead to something bigger. We didn't know that what we were putting on the second time was going to cost us thousands, with no intent to raise any money. And we didn't know we weren't going to weather the storm. But we always believed, or I always believed, I don't want to speak for you, Larry, that something good will come of it. No matter what the situation is, something good will come of it. And that actually led us to a philosophy called mastering the spin. And it's finding the good in any bad situation, because there always is, no matter what. Sometimes it takes time and tears to find them. Mm-hmm. And once you've gone through enough time and enough tears, you'll always have the memories of what was great. And so the reason why I continue to take risks, number one, I enjoy it. I enjoy the thrill of it. So just being honest and transparent, like I like to drive fast. I like the risk of it. I like the reward of it. I bought a motorcycle that I didn't know how to ride and figured out how to ride it home because I enjoy the challenge of pushing myself beyond what other people would be able to do. So I do it for a personal reward, but there's also the long-term gratification of believing wholeheartedly that something good will come of everything. And I don't always know what it is at the time, but I know it's coming. And the problem with knowing that it's coming, or I guess the problem with not knowing it's coming, is you don't look for it. And sometimes it comes and it misses you. So I'm an optimistic person, probably one of the most optimistic people that you'll ever meet. I believe things are going to work out. And because I believe that, I seize the opportunity when it comes. So for me, the reason why I do it is because I believe that even in the failure, that's just the first rung that you're climbing. You're eventually going to find the reward in every single thing. So that's for me why I do it, and why I believe that you should do it is because if you have the right attitude and the right belief system, you'll find those rewards too. And I will tell you, the last week or week and a half in our business has been, for me, without question, the most exciting time, because every little piece that we've put in place for our 10-year relationship as business partners is now coming full circle. And there really isn't one element that isn't being touched right now. Larry, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so my answer why I do it, well, first of all, I don't view it as a risk. For me, it's a philosophy, and the philosophy is I want to live life. And I want to taste everything. I don't mind if I put something in my mouth that doesn't taste bad. I'd rather have the bad taste than be in fear of should I or should I not taste it. And I've learned over the course of my life that whatever situation I'm in, whatever condition I'm in, meaning like I have money, I don't have money, I have good health, I don't have good health, whatever it is really just a snapshot in time. So it's temporary. And because I look at everything as temporary, it's like what you said about Jim Rohn. After the summer will come the fall and then the winter. So it's just a season of my life. And I've learned to really enjoy it. So when I was living, homeless, and I was didn't have anywhere to live, there were lots of things that I learned and nurtured myself with, so that I actually learned from that experience. That experience was one of the most enriching experiences I've ever had. And when I've had large sums of money, like the free spending, or just the abundance of not caring what anything costs and things like that was crazy. Some people would say, well, it's manic. And I would say, no, it was just fun. And so I've learned to ride the waves. And as long as I have confidence in riding the waves, there's no risk. So, should you do it? I don't know. I'm not here to tell you to do it, but I would invite everybody that's listening. That's the difference between Jim and I.
Yeah, so, I'm like, yeah, you should do it.
Yeah.
Why not?
And mine is, do it or not do it. Personally, I don't really care, and it's up to you. But I would invite everybody that's listening just to to go deep within themselves, and just when you can learn to rely on yourself, there's such empowerment in that. There's such a peace of mind that you don't have to worry about the economy and what the president does and if there's a health scare and all these things, because you know that you have you. And once you have you, you have everything that ever matters to you.
Well stated, Larry. I like that. And, that's the difference also. Larry was right between us. He's just rude. He doesn't care if you have risks and successes. And I'm so much more compassionate and want so much more for you than Larry does. So I'll hear about that when we're off
yes.
there. But no, all kidding aside, I think that the risk is always there in just about everything if you believe it is, but the reward is always there. And to me, the reward outweighs the risk every single time.
When I was studying spiritual psychology at University of Santa Monica and reading, a lot of personal development stuff, I used to always read this saying or this concept, and I never really understood what it meant. And that what I'm talking or referring to is it's never about the destination, it's always the journey. And I would be like, no, it's not the journey, it's the destination. Like, I want the money now, I want the car. I don't want to, work 2 years to get to the car. I just want the car. I want this.
Right.
But what I realized was that after you have the car, you're going to want something else. When you get the dream house, you're going to want the vacation house. When you get the vacation house, you're going to want a third house. When whatever it is you get, you're going to want something else. So what I realized is that that life is a constant journey. It's never a destination. The destination is just, that week or that month that you're really happy you have it. But then, you want the upgrade, you want the next best thing. So I have just learned that to, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I think that's well stated. Is there anything, Larry, and I want to wrap up with this, I'll turn it over to you, and then you can send us off for the night. Let me get to the question in just a second. But for those of you that have taken risks and it worked out, even when it didn't seem like it was working out at the time, but you found out later, I would love for you to share that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to see that in the comments, whether you're watching this on our website, whether you're watching it on YouTube, no matter where you're watching it, I would encourage you to share that information with us so we can comment on it and hear your story. And you can do that at thejimandlarryteam.com, and you can add a comment there. You can do it right there on social media. Larry, my question for you as we close out of this is, what was the biggest thing that someone told you was the biggest risk that ended up to have the biggest reward? And you may have already said
I did, yeah.
In fact,
and that's,
I think you did.
Smoking the crack. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk about some things that was a huge, nothing personal for those of us that listen? A lot of our audience owns their own business. They're specialists in that. But was there a big business risk that ended up paying off? And I know about the catering, and that's probably a big one after 4 incarnations with the restaurant, trying to make it work. Just keep going. But what's your thoughts? Something in business, and then we'll be off.
Well, after I regained my sobriety, my business was close to bankrupt, and actually it was in receivership because my business partner had went to court to take the business away from me. Long story short, my business partner and I split up, and I was left with this struggling company. And the business was in his name, meaning the name of the business was his name. And I was always the person in the background, so no one really knew me, and it was the restaurant business. So I think, to answer your question, Jim, the biggest risk I took was I decided to give it a chance and run it, even though everybody said I had no business running it and every reason not to run it. And I ran it just to prove it to myself that I could. And I turned that business around in 1 year from being broke to being very successful. And then I ended up selling it and closing it. But I think that probably was the one. And it's situations like that that have given me such confidence in being me. And as a result, there are no risks as long as you have yourself. Thanks for watching tonight. Thanks for listening.
Unapologetically us with Jim and Larry. Be real, be yourself, and never let anyone tell you what you should do and who you should be. But whatever you are, whoever you are,